Suffice it to say that the pilgrimage to Selma was something that I had envisioned when I came here several years ago, because I like to involve students in various kinds of activities that are related to my relatively long, perhaps too long, advocacy, Joe K, of work around these issues. And so 2 years ago, President Keyes went with a smaller group, about 8 or 9 we went, and that was a great experience. But we didn't go on the 49th because we suspected that the 50th would be a very special occasion. And I got to tell you, it was bigger than even I thought it would be, because who knew that there would be a film made about Selma? And then all kinds of I mean, there was just tremendous amount of discussion about Selma, its history, its meaning, and whatnot. And the most important thing is that I really wanted York College and CUNY, but I wanted York College, our students, to be at the forefront of this pilgrimage, to experience, to meet people, to get a sense of what it was like, but not just what it was like, to get a feeling for what it is to be engaged now and what it means to move forward in the future. And it was chaotic, it was hectic, there was more people than I'd ever seen in Selma before. But it proved, I think, at the end of the day, to be an incredible experience. And that's exactly what we wanted it to be. And I'm really going to close by reading this letter, because I think this letter, and some of you have heard it and seen it, epitomizes what I had hoped for in terms of how our students represent it. Because at the end of the day, and many of you remember this, things broke down a little bit about the march. There was no stage there was supposed to be there. And y'all kind of saw me scattering and running. There were some of the organizers trying to figure out how we are going to manage this march at the beginning. And our students stepped up because the foot soldiers requested, would some of the York College students, could they help them with the banner? And this gave us an opportunity to invite all of our York College students who were positioned as they had been asked to be positioned, extremely disciplined, to step forward. And you stepped forward and provided extraordinary leadership in helping to provide a orderly organization of the march at the beginning, because it could have gotten very, very chaotic. And that was a very important role. And I think, I'm blanking on her name now, but she has a shot of it in USA Today. You can actually see the York banner on the bridge. Phelps, Dean Phelps. So maybe Dr. Phelps will come and show you that. But let me just conclude quickly with this. She says, "Dear Dr. Daniels, my name is Tracy Lewis, and my daughter and I came from Columbus, Ohio." And by the way, I'm from Ohio. Spent many of my years there. And this lady may have known me because I was very active all over the state, to participate in the heroic Selma 50th commemoration. Following the directions, the spot we were standing in was to be at the front of the line. However, there were those who chose to do differently, and my daughter was smashed, stepped on, and moved out of her spot. The organizer then placed the York students and their banner up front and asked them to hold the line. That's what we were talking about then. I was so impressed with the way they stepped up and took control of the responsibility that they were given. They were polite, even though many were not polite to them. They were poised, they were serious, and they stood proud. My daughter is 8 and was upset that she was no longer able to see and that she was continuing to be smashed. The York students were several people away from us, but I was able to get the attention of one young lady and asked her if she would mind letting my daughter join the line with them so that she could not only be protected from the crowd, but also see and get the full understanding of why we were there. She asked the young man who appeared to be the group leader, and he agreed. My daughter was so excited. They let her hold the sign with them. Okay? They let her hold the sign with them. The 2 young ladies she was between surrounded her to protect her from the crowd. The students made sure that they weren't walking too fast so she could keep up, and overall, they just embraced her. My heart was filled as she smiled with pride carrying the banner with her new friends. As they marched over the bridge, several of the gentlemen were yelling out instructions to watch their steps so as not to trip. Even an older woman fell. They stopped the line, who held the marchers back until she was able to get up, and the gentleman ran to her assistance so that she would not get hurt. The leadership and overall character shown by the York students made me so proud of them. I know many of them came to York with qualities exhibited on Sunday. However, I also know that a good college takes those qualities and builds on the foundation to make them even better leaders. The young people you brought from Selma were definitely leaders of that day, and I suspect leaders on their campus every day. And then she goes on to say, yeah, thank you for supporting their learning and giving them this experience. You also please share this with the president and other officers. She wanted to make sure that President Keyes had this letter to know how proud she was of how our York College students conducted themselves on that day. And I'm so proud that you did the same thing. And now, to guide us through the rest of the program, we had chaperones who were on the case who did an extraordinary job, and of course, Dr. Selena Rogers, in her own inimitable way, provided extraordinary leadership, and she will guide us through the rest of the program. Let's welcome Dr. Selena Rogers.
Well, I thank you, our distinguished lecturer, Dr. Elder, Dr. Ron Daniels. The panel that you see comprised here is a call and a response of individuals who agreed to sit on the panel, but this will be a reflection of narratives that they want to introduce. And at the end, I will open it up to other Selma scholars who win if they want to also offer some of their reflections. But I do want to pause for a moment because our most honorable President, Marcia V. Keyes, Dr. Keyes, has just walked in, and I wish to give her the podium to say a few words.
Very few words, because I'm really here to listen. Because as you know, some of you know, I managed to not make it to Selma, although I'd made it sometime before, and I was really looking forward to being with you. But I've heard, of course, I watched with great interest. I kept looking. I know York College students are there. I was pointing it out to my mother when I was at home. And so I'm here today to hear a little bit more about the experience. I've heard a lot of anecdotes about the transformation that has occurred. And one of your cohorts who introduced me recently to the community, reintroduced me to the community, made a very, very powerful statement. And I know there are lots of powerful statements here in Lives Transformed. So I'm here to listen today and to say how pleased I am as president of York with the work that you did while you were there, and with the leadership you had in the presence of your faculty, who also helped to guide you on that. And enough cannot be said, quite frankly, about Ron Daniels. I know he is a little shy on these matters, but he has really been a force here at York in leading an active and some activism and intellectualism together. And I can't really say enough, Dr. Daniels, about how much we appreciate the work that you continue to do. Not have done, but that you continue to do. And of course, you've been joined by some phenomenal colleagues, both within your department and external to the department. So I'm here to listen. So thank you.
President Keyes. So just to recap, we'll begin with our panel. I will pose several questions in which I would ask that you respond to. And at the end, we will also take reflections from the floor should others choose to participate. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce Joshua Shuck, who is a health and physical education major. And then next to him, we have Fatima Mulbrook, who is a social work major. And then next to her is Sheila Reynolds, who's also a social work major. And then finally, last but not least, Roberto Brutus, who is also a computer science major. Welcome, the Selma Scholars. So my first question, and this is posed to each of you, is what would be one or two of the highlights that you take away from Selma?
Leading for soldiers, of course.
Oh, I'm moderator and mic person.
meeting the foot soldiers and meeting the foot soldiers and also walking through that Edmund Pettus Bridge, because walking through that bridge symbolizes Civil Rights Act 50 years ago, and we're still celebrating, and it's still not done today. And to be a part of that as your college students was honorable, because it was a historical landmark that we all had the privileges we have today because of that and because of them. So.
Yeah. I feel like the highlights of the event for me was I love the festival because I actually got to get a little taste of the Alabama culture, and like it was really cool. I got to meet a lot of people there, and like the mayor's conference, I got to meet a lot of people from Alabama there too, and we learned about Alabama hospitality and Southern hospitality. And then the next highlight for me is the march. Ending our whole trip to Alabama with the march was really a powerful moment for me. And we locked arms and we won as a group, and we didn't let nobody break our line, and we like stayed together. Like that was like really powerful for me. Yeah.
Hi. Oh boy. The most memorable moment for me was the hearing on poverty at Brown Memorial Church. For me, it was like, wow, we are still kind of in the same place because they knocked down certain parts of the Voting Rights Act. So for me, that was like really important. Just listening to the speakers talk about how we must organize. And it was like old meets young. You understand, 50 years ago, they were there for that Voting Rights Act, basically to let the world know we are American citizens. We want to be treated as humans. Yeah. And 50 years later, we still in the same place, marching for the same issues. So that was the most for me. And the second was being at the reception, meeting the mayor of Selma, and actually meeting the people that were there 50 years ago, marching, and telling their stories of why they were there. You know, actually touching and feeling, I'm like, wow, these people were really there, you know? Because when all that was going on, I was a little tight. I seen it on TV, but I didn't understand it. You know, today I can understand it better, and I can actually do something, you know, to make a change, no matter how small it may be. So that's what stood out for me.
Two of my highlights were, the first one was the bus ride there. The reason why was because I didn't really know too many of the students that accompanied me on the trip. So the bus ride there and back, it gave us time to bond, get to know each other, you know, the different cultures, the different things that people like. We got to know each other better. The second thing was meeting all the politicians and the social activists, because as a young person like myself, being in your 20s, you see these people on television, you're like, oh yeah, I know John Lewis, I know Martin Luther King's son. But for you to actually see them in person, shake their hands, and the opportunity to ask them a question, even just to ask them, how did it feel like 50 years ago? That was very powerful for myself.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm so humbled, one, that Dr. Daniels thought enough of me to be able to moderate, but it's a very unique experience because I'm processing my own narrative as I'm also moderating and just hearing a lot of what's being said, how I'm absorbing that for myself. So I need time and I guess a different platform to kind of process it through for myself. But to follow up, I guess I want to, and I think Roberto said something really critical about how the bus ride down allowed for, learning about different cultures and different individuals, students, scholars that you didn't necessarily know before. What else were you able to take from your knowledge, your coursework here at York College that prepared you to exemplify the leadership that Dr. Daniels read about from the young woman and her daughter on the bridge? Like, what did you take? What skills, what knowledge, what within your coursework has helped you to formulate those leadership skills that you now possess?
Well, prior to coming to, one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Selma, with it being, I knew that there was going to be a march. Lately, within the past year and a half, I found myself I fell in love with the whole social activism and wanting to be young and being a part of something. So I started like leading marches. Like some of the marches that I led were like the Million Man March on Martin Luther King Day. So I kind of had the experience of leading marches and the crowd control and being in that hostile environment. So when Dr. Ron Daniels asked the school to come to the front and told us to stand up in the forefront, and then he disappeared, something was just clicking in at that moment. Like, I don't know what it was, but someone just told me just step up. So I just took that, the works that I've done prior to that, and I just applied to them. It was a hostile environment. Not too many people were familiar with me, especially with my accent. They could tell that I wasn't from Selma. I was young. There was a lot of, no offense, but older people organizing the situation. But when they saw that I stepped up, some people try to challenge that authority, and it was just a matter of how do I come about it? How do I transition that hostility and make it positive so that we can think bigger, think of it as it's more than just myself or that person that I'm having a confrontation with. This is a march, this is for peace. We can't let that small situation taint the whole bigger picture. So that was it for me.
I also wanted to say about the bus ride there also. And me and Sheila actually recorded the trip while we were in Selma, and the neighborhood was the worst poverty I've ever seen. It was like a culture shock because we got to see how people lived every day, and it was so far from their resources. So if one of them were sick, how, it was far, matter of car distance. And also the majority of them are blacks, black families. And so now walking over that bridge, Edmund Pettus Bridge, I was not only thinking of with our head held high, all of us, and feeling accomplished and feeling we did a difference, but also there's work to be done. We have to reorganize, we have to recollect, we have to step off, like leave where we left off and start organizing because there's still poverty. Because remember what Dr. King said. Dr. King wanted to eliminate poverty. He wanted to eliminate it completely. And it's still, till this day, from what me and Sheila saw, my mom was surprised when she saw the video. She said, wow, the homes, the mobile homes, the doors were weak, as if a storm came, it would have been gone. It was that terrible to me, and I couldn't believe it. So coming back, I even called Joe Kay, my mentor, and I was so excited. I wanted to organize, and I'm being a part of People Power activist group. I just had so much ideas coming in, and really, there has to be a change. We have to really reorganize everything. And what Sheila said about the church, what they said was powerful because it came from a socialist view that we need to really reorganize and shape everything. So that's what I got.
For me, okay, it's about engaging, intervening, and preventing. Okay, the poverty, as Fatima just stated, is like unbelievable. You wouldn't believe you in America, and that's just one part. As somebody mentioned, thank God it wasn't Mississippi. So that tells me it's even worse there. You understand? So on the real side of things, we got to put our differences aside and really organize. I mean, actually do the footwork. Put your sneakers on, whatever, your Crocs, your clocks. And yeah, we have to, march, write, protest. And as Reverend Barber said, it's about civil disobedience. That's when people will really listen. The powers that be will listen. When that civil disobedience come into play and they start knocking heads, people are gonna look like, wait a minute, okay. This is what they did in Selma. You know, it's okay to hold the sign up, but the civil disobedience, I think, is like the really big part of it. And as a social work major, engage, prevent, intervene, you know, and do. And we could do it on every level. We start with the individual, then it works to the family, the community, and worldwide, you know? So that's my take on that.
One thing that like really helped me get through like that, you said the trials, and I feel that like while on the bus, we was like networking and bonding, and I felt like I bonded with these people. So when it came to the march, like, and like locking arms with them, like I felt like this was like those are like my brothers and sisters I'm locking arms with, and I'm about to walk through, and we're not gonna let anybody come through it, because like we like a family. We can't let somebody break our family line. And like I feel like I learned that from New York, because like networking is key, and we met a lot of people out there, and we like got on a different level. I feel like I'm on a different level with everybody that went on the trip than I was on when I first went on a trip with them. And like that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. That actually brings me to my follow-up question, just in terms of an adjective or two of how you would describe how impactful coming back. Okay, so you've gone to Selma and you've come back to Selma. What is an adjective that would describe that experience or that transformative process for you?
Let's start for Tima.
The ride back from Selma, I still was in utterly shock. I couldn't even put it into words. I tried to have my black book with me, writing everything I could just think of, and it didn't come out as I wanted. So it took a while to process what I encountered and what we all experienced. And it was when, I don't even know what to say now, because it's still, it's a heavy load. It's really, from the first day we came into Selma, Alabama, we met foot soldiers. We actually kneeled down to them, speaking to them, looking them in the eyes, and telling them thank you. And we know as a young generation coming up, we have to do something. We have to take that brave step, what they did. And then from there on, we actually went to the bridge before the march, the pre-march, and we were alone. We were walking through that bridge at night, and that was where I felt the chills. And that's where I felt, wow, this little tiny bridge was people walking there not knowing if they're gonna come out alive. And for them to take that risk, to have equality, to have everyone be equal, is something major, something huge. And it really took in as I should take this advantage and should move on from what we left off, because there's a lot to be done, a lot. We're in the midst of police brutality. We're in the midst of inequality all over, healthcare, job incomes, socioeconomic status, to say it as that. And it's a lot to take in. So from what I'm processing right now is keep writing my poems, keep moving on, keep sharing what I know. And hopefully one day we all get together and start something, or start a movement, because we really need to get change done. And if there's no change, we will still, poverty rates will still be among us high. So.
For me coming back, it was like, okay, where do we start? So for me, it's just starting with just that one person. You understand? Talking to them about what it is to vote. You know, why we have to. The sections of the Voting Rights Act that they removed in the southern states. And if we don't watch out, it'll creep up here. You understand? Things will go back. You constantly hear the rhetoric of, we want our government back. What do you mean we want our government back? You understand? Like, certain people don't exist in this government. That's the way I take it. So the ride back, I'm thinking, okay, how can I start? Where do I start? So if anybody got suggestions, let me know. You know, really, we need ideas.
With me on the way back, it was just more so about how can I engage my friends? How can I engage those here at York? How can I engage the people that are my age? How can I engage the people that don't read the newspaper, that doesn't know what's going on outside of Brooklyn, that's going outside of New York? How can I engage them? So I really haven't necessarily found the right formula yet, but I know first and foremost, it begins with myself. I know that I relate to a lot of the people that, the examples that I just gave out, the people that don't read the newspaper, that doesn't pay attention to the news, not because I don't want to, but that's just because that's my lifestyle. I'm very busy, but I make efforts to go out and find that information. So now I'm finding ways of that information that I personally went out to go get. How can I bring it back and give it off to the people that don't know where to look for it? That's why, prior to the Selma trip for Black History Month, I dedicated that whole month. Every week, I designed a program where I would share some information, whether it was about ancient Moors or the case for reparations, whatever the case may be. So that's my idea. And moving on from now to like the future of your college, whenever there's a chance, whenever there's something that's hot at the moment on the news, I will make it my duty to find that necessary information and then create a program, something like this, where it's an open forum and there's a back and forth between the panelists and the audience so that everybody could be on one accord.
When we finally left Selma, I was just like, wow, like I just made history. I just like had a taste of history. I just felt history. And like, I was so excited that like I actually got to experience something like that and meet those people that I met and like go through everything I went through to get where I was. And on the way back, it was like the ride there was like painful. But on the way back, it was like nothing. Like it was like, yo, we got here so quick. Like we was like, at York already? Like I was like it was fun on the way back. Like there it was like a little tough, but on the way back it was nothing. Because like the experience was incredible.
So I have to add my tidbit every time I get the mic back. I'm just so grateful for a lot of the Selma scholars that I've come into contact with that are not social work majors, that I now have a relationship when I see in the hallway, or, just the embracing of a hug, or, just really just thankful to Mac Alexandra for his phenomenal work and his phenomenal photos that been put together here. And that brings me to my next question. In seeing some of the photos, like what stands out about, in particular, the foot soldiers? I'm thinking when we were going to the welcome address of the mayor, and I just was looking around the room, and we, had really just got there and were somewhat getting settled, but were there, and we were in the room with us being, currently what's going on, but we were in the room with legacy and history. What comes to mind when you look at those photos and reflect back?
When I walked in the room here and seen the photos, all I can think of is courage, because these are people that were willing to risk life and limb, for equality, for the next generation. And sometimes, I'm discouraged when I see what I see out there. You understand, with the young people, even some of the older people, it's just no hope. So I think for us that went to Selma, we got to try to bring hope back and make it happen, But what I seen was courage, from the foot soldiers, the people that were actually there, and these were children, younger than some of you guys that went on the trip. 17, 16, so if they can do it, we sure can do it, because they paved the way for us to be where we are today.
I remember at the hall, I looked at Dr. Rogers and I said to her, and I was scared, I was nervous, and I said, can we speak to these foot soldiers? Can I speak? And then Dr. Rogers says, go ahead. She told me, go ahead. And at first I was kind of shaky. I didn't know what to say. Who am I? What am I going to say? And actually, we kneeled down to one of the foot soldiers, and I will never forget this. It's gonna stay in my mind for the rest of my life. Is when she caressed my face, and because I told her thank you, and I told her what you did was brilliant, was courage, and we're gonna take this on. And she was tearful, and she gave me, Laura, one of the social work majors and a student, a hug too. And we began moving on to speak to another foot soldiers, and it was enlightening. It was the most incredible feeling ever, because we're talking to such role models that, you know, I'm in the same age group as they were when they entered this bridge, and I look at myself like, what did I do? Yeah, I may be in this group, or I may be in this activist group, and I may be this and that, but what did I do? What did I write? What did I accomplish? You know, and it makes you think. It makes you really sit down and think, where do we start off from here? And I'm gonna keep repeating this because we're still living in a world where poverty rates are higher. And people who are mostly incarcerated are black men. And if we look at the records, it's for no reason. Well, not no reason, but for little petty reasons. From police brutality, and it's at large. Black males walking down the street being victimized because of police authority. And this is where we have to come in and really sit down and think. So that's my take on that.
May you repeat the question?
My question or comment had more to do with, as you came into the room and you were able to view some of the photos, like what reflective, thought do you have in seeing those photos?
The reflective thought that I have is that the foot soldiers, like she was saying, was very courageous, like was really strong for doing what they did, and I'm glad that they did what they did. And at the mayor's reception, as soon as we got to Selma, me and my couple of my other group friends that I was with, we sat down at a table, and we were sitting down right next to the foot soldiers while the chair was talking and introducing everybody to mayors and politicians. And then this foot soldier we were sitting next to, she said, but what about the foot soldiers? And she went up there and she was like, what about the foot soldiers? And then they said, all the foot soldiers come up, and like half of the room was foot soldiers. And I was like, wow, like that's crazy. Like, and that was like something that was great. And when I see these pictures, all I think about is those foot soldiers, and they really need to get like credit every time for everything that they did. Like, I really appreciate it.
When I came in the room and I saw the pictures, first thing I thought about was Instagram. Not, but no, in all honesty, I did think about social media, not for the simple fact that, 100 likes or whatever the case may be, but just because of the simple fact that we can't be selfish and just keep this for ourselves. Like, we have to share this, Like, I don't think we realize how much power our youth have, especially in this day and age where everything is virtual, where, we got Note of Ferguson because of social media, because things go like that. So, like, if I can get the links to these pictures, please, anybody, but, and not just me, but everybody else here who has those, like, share them with friends, family, people you don't know. Just, let people know that you had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, one that you may never have the chance to accomplish again.
Speaking about pictures, I posted a lot of pictures during the trip on my Instagram, and a lot of people in York came up to me and it was like, how can I get involved in something like that? And I was like, well, and I tried to tell them how to get involved, and some of the people is even here too. Yeah.
I'm hoping it will come up again, but the particular foot soldier that Joshua is speaking about was at our table, and I remember so vividly when she made the comment. She said, sis, I'm going up there. And I was just like, I hear you. But let's be clear about a few things. She is in full Army fatigue regalia, so when she said it, I was just like, oh, I know. I know you're going up there. But something that was so critical in what she said is, and I think, in all due respect, President Keys and Dr. Daniels and Dean Banray, and I'm always humble to my elders. But I think oftentimes because we want to be in protocol so much, we may forget the folk that really do the grunt work, like they've done the grunt work on a certain level. But what she was waiting. Here she goes. She was waiting very patiently. And she kept looking around like, well, wait a minute. And so I was just so grateful to her for yet again having courage to go up there and tug. I mean, she was tugging on, someone as in a high-ranking role and she said exactly what she said she was going to say. What about the foot soldiers? Had it not been for her voice, her presence, the foot soldiers would not have been on stage because that was not necessarily in order of things for it being the mayor's welcome address, because there were a lot of political officials that were there. So again, I agree with what everyone is saying, but I think we always have to remember just the folk that have paved the way and understanding our responsibility to always honor, always be respectful, always be humble, and always help when people are not recognizing who those folk are. We have an obligation. No matter where we sit or how we look or how people think we may not have the voice to speak, that's our responsibility. That's our charge in life. That's my 2 cents. So, my follow-up, I am going to open it up to, may I just have the Selma scholars or the Selma delegation stand up? I just want folk to see who y'all are. Dr. Hanson also. And I think it's important, as I said, for those who came in afterwards, right now we have a panel of Selma scholars who were, it was open to everyone and they decided to sit on the panel. But in about 15 minutes, I'm going to actually open it up to the floor to have more reflections from everyone else, because y'all have clearly a different narrative. Everyone had a different experience. And we want to hear also from Dr. Hanson, who's in the room, and others who may also be in the room. So that said, I do want to bring up, and this is important because as much as we took a lot from a positive standpoint, what we were able to get from Selma and how it was life-changing and life-altering and transformative for us, what are some of the challenges that you take away that will help us improve? How, because again, there will be a, led by Dr. Daniels, that is, future Selmas, and there's clearly a movement that needs to continue, but we also want to do it better. And I ask that in the context of how do we do this better? I'm someone that I do a lot of service activities with social work student scholars. It's different from other majors in terms of what the expectations are. So how do you encourage us to help you to do this better, to make this movement better? That's a tough one, huh? Yeah. But it's an honest question, because we do want to make it better.
I know I send a lot of emails to Dr. Rogers among about police brutality and the victims in New York, and it's a lot of emails I send her, and it's because I'm as passionate as I am, I'm mad. I'm mad because I want to do something. I'm so eager to do something as far as all of us. And I think to start off with York, I think we should really organize a group and really look and do research on the struggles, the daily struggles, on Black American lives, people of color every day. Because if we don't do it starting from, because as students, we're the most active, we're more active as students. So, Dr. Daniels, if you would please, if we start if we would start a group, a small group, just doing research and really focusing on what we need to just an eyes on the prize. And build from there, and who knows what activities we could do or what we can be able to accomplish.
question was, how can we make the trip more memorable, more organized?
Well, organization is an area for you, but the goal is to always take from and to be able to improve what it is that we've done. We want to make it better. So what would your recommendation, what could you offer to us in terms of us being organizers to make this a more beneficial? Because again, this in and of itself is historical, right? But we also know that there's always opportunities to do it better.
Well, my suggestion would be, as we're bringing in the students, you know, letting them know this is a trip, find out what kind of activities are they involved in, you know, within the school or even the community, you know, and interview face to face, you know, find out what they know about, you know, if we go into Selma again, what do they actually know about it? You know, I think that would make it a little better, you know, to have some knowledge of what you're going to, what you're heading to. And that's my take.
How do we make it better? How do we improve? There was a lot of scheduling conflicts with the trip, not blame it on anybody. It's just, it's the 50th of Selma, you know, like you can't avoid that. But maybe a suggestion could be, we had a list of the events prior to going to the trip. Maybe as a group, we can decide on a major event for that day, because I know that we were trying to like get to one event and due to the traffic we couldn't, so we had to, if it was possible that we can schedule like one major event for that day, have a little time to let the scholars, you know, explore the culture. Because I know at one point in time when we went to go get food, that was like the most interaction we had with the people of Selma. You know, as we were going to get food, you know, we tried to get slices of pizza. And I was like, "What's a slice? It's a hunk," you know, like so like things like that. You know, give us some time to like explore. You know, talk to the people around there, get more of that exposure. You know, let's see if there's a major event. That way we can, you know, use our time accordingly.
Great point. Thank you. Joshua?
I think everything was basically covered, but I think timing is definitely an issue, and we should, like, even though we had early mornings and late nights, I think it was just something that we couldn't avoid, but I think timing is an issue, yeah.
I just want to say, I had no problem. If we slept at we had to wake up 5 in the morning. I had no problem. I was embracing every moment. I wanted to stay awake the whole entire time. Like Sheila saw me in the corner, I couldn't even sleep. So I had no problem with the timing issues.
So before I open it up to the floor, what I do want to say is there will never be a 50th again. And so I don't. Yes, there will be. and hopefully, you know, some of us or many of us will have an opportunity to be there, Dr. Hanson, with our esteemed leader, Dr. Ron Daniels, organizing, certainly. But what I want to say is the reality was Selma, not even Montgomery, they were not ready for the capacity of the folk who showed up. So I think within the realities of and the inclement weather, I mean, President Keyes could not get there. I left here, yeah, and Dr. Daniels, and I truly left here as a chaperone, and I ended up something else, and we just go with it. And I think it's really how you receive it and embrace it. That's just the reality of the world. And I think the fact that we understand what the event was about, for me, and this is just my narrative, those kinds of things became very minute. It wasn't relevant enough. So we moved beyond those things to really receive the experience. Certainly, if we had it to do and we can control some things, we would have loved to stay in Selma. Our delegation was just too large and the rooms were not available. Certainly, we would prefer not to have commuted back and forth. There are things that we would love to have done differently, but the reality was we dealt with what we had, and we did it well. We did it well, okay? So give yourselves a salute for that. With that being said, are there any questions for the panel, this panel first, before I go to the audience, the Selma audience? No. No one has a question, a comment? I didn't hear you. Yeah, so that's why I'm coming to the audience, but I wanted to hear, I guess let me frame it this way. Are there any questions from the floor that are non-Selma delegation folk? Comments? No? Okay, I just wanted to be, because when I open it up, they're about to take over. Yes. There we go.
My comment is, I'm so glad that you guys was able to make it, and for us who wasn't able to go, we're glad for the experience that you guys have, and that you were able to come back and share that experience with us, so that we were also, could be a part of it, even although we weren't there, but just to hear what you guys have been through and what you have experienced, bring back memories, so, we can also share it with you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, could I ask one of you to speak a little bit more on the community? Like you were saying how the community was, damaged. The community, some of the mobile homes had something along those lines.
Okay, so I'm going to open it back up, but can I just add to your question? And this is social worker in me. I think as much as, and Fatima, spoke to the issue of poverty, in response to the question of can you speak more to the community and with the observations and just, the traditions and the culture there, also identify, please, what some of the strengths that the locals were able to present, that you were able to observe.
Go ahead, Fatima. Well, yes. I mean, the poverty is just unbelievable. These were actually trailer homes that were totally, if a strong wind came, they probably would just blow away. You understand? This is the reality for these people, that live in Selma. And the people, the poverty meeting that they have at Brown Memorial, these were the people within the community empowering themselves to make a change. You understand? They cut in Medicaid. It looked like they just cut everything. Do they even have running water? And as one woman spoke, she said, you go to some places, it's no running water. It's no indoor toilet. This is the stuff we're not going to see on the nightly news. You understand? So these are the things that I listen to and that I'm willing to try to work and make a change. Because we have that same issue right here in New York. It used to be Far Rockaway. It has changed. You understand? It's still places. Or you go upstate New York, you wouldn't believe you were in New York State, the Empire State. Okay.
Okay. Also looking at the view in the area of Selma, Alabama, you thought it was a whole junkyard. You thought it was cans. It was not even cans. It was, what do you call those? It was we saw a lot of metal materials on the floor, on the ground, and houses were weak, were small, and I actually saw someone coming out from the house, and I said, wow, because we live in Queens, we live here, the most diverse area, and with houses and buildings, and to see that was just, and we're on our way to celebrate 50 years of Selma, celebrate equal justice, celebrate what we fought for 50 years. So to see, it was kind of, the social work in me also, I wanted to talk to the people. I wanted to get out that bus and just talk to the families. What is the struggles you guys are going through? How do we write this down? How do we, and when we went to the church and the pastor was speaking, he said, you know, we have to know our facts. We have to know in order to start something. We have to, and it was kind of funny because when me and Sheila went in, we came kind of late before everyone started going in, and we heard one of, was she Oprah's bodyguard? No, not bodyguard, but
I think she just spoke about Oprah coming to Selma.
So,
and, you know, she asked her, did you go here? Did you go there? Oprah didn't go to where the real poor people were.
yeah,
You know, and this was a lady representing the public housing of Selma.
yeah.
You know, empowering herself and her community, you know, 'cause she's tired, you know, of living the way she's living. You know, no services, as Fatima just stated. 50 years of Selma, and we still living like 50 years ago, really?
Yeah, and there was
You
no
know, so-
resources. That's what bothered me the most, is to see families. I know, let's say if you were raised in a home like that, or raised in an area like that, how would you feel? What would you do? What resources would you get? What help would you get? You know, I didn't even see a school. Did we see it? We didn't even see it driving down there.
No,
Like,
sure did.
and we saw, the
sure
pharmacy
somewhere.
was probably 5 miles away. The pharmacy. And I'm not even lying. I have it all in my recordings. It was 5 miles away. So walking in that bridge, it was, my thoughts were wild. It was running wild because I just wanted to, that's why I was speechless coming back. I didn't know what to say. I can't say, oh, yeah, we walked through that bridge. We celebrate. No, there's still a lot to be done. And it's still here a lot to be done. Because it's not even in the media, news media. Like, there's blogs I see, and I look up and do research, and I actually send it to Dr. Daniels, and it's a lot of black males every day here walking down these streets. And it's very important. It's very important that we take notes and we really just, and I want to thank your college for giving us the opportunity for making us to realize this. It's because of your college, the faculty here that made us really, so that's.
Thank you. Yes.
My question is, what was the strongest point that the pastor made at the church? What do you believe was the strongest, most influential, the highlight of his message? Could you share that with us?
I'm going to defer to them, but oh, sure. Okay, so let me just say, Reverend Dr. Barber, his presence, if we would stop just there, was profound. So now, and again, we went over in terms of the timeline. His message was so powerful, we were just still sitting there. So, I mean, really, the other event had began, and we were still sitting there in awe of just his whole presence and his presentation. Yes, Rochelle?
Okay, to answer your question.
Can you hear?
Do you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
When we went to the Brown Chapel Church, the pastor, that's the only thing I kept in mind. He was like, there were a lot of people who were there. And he's like, the same people who came to Selma, the politicians, the senators, everyone who came, they're the one who will go back to the White House and change the law just to make it harder on them, even if they came to support. That's the main thing it really touched me. I'm like, okay, people's gonna come there and support and help, but then again, when you go back, it's just like you're being a hypocrite.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah.
That was also echoed at the Unity Breakfast. That was definitely echoed. But I think, look, I'm trying, I see you. Go ahead, Selma Scholar, give me 1 second though. But I think it's important that accountability is what Reverend Dr. Barber was saying. We have to hold each other accountable. So it's great to come out for these photo ops, but folk are dying. And again, and when you say the whole piece about culture shock, Selma's not really rural for the South, just so you know. Like outhouses and stuff, so what you all saw is just, my family's from Alabama, I'm a New Yorker, but that's not even rural. So when you talk about poverty, you haven't seen poverty. What you're really talking about is a lack of resources that should exist when we're now 50 years post-Selma. So that's what we're really speaking about. Selma Scholar?
Well, one of the messages that will always stick with me is like, what defines America? Because when he was speaking, he was like, well, politicians, they put their hand on the Bible. They always put their hand on the Bible. You ever notice that? Yeah. But are they really speaking with the Bible? Are they reading it like word for word? Or are they reading it based on experience? You understand? So it's like, I feel like a lot of the things, it's like who they elect, and yeah, the one thing I admire about their community, they act as a community.
Yes.
However, it still is the young people who, and older people as well, unfortunately, who has lost hope because of the education system and things not being enforced, and it's the wrong things that are trending. Because people look off of like media, they look, you know, what's going on media, and they're not really focusing on what they fought for 50 years ago. So I think it's not only up to the politicians, but it's up to the people who elect them. You know, so you have to, I think it all boils back down to education. Unlike, that's what the message that he was sending.
Thank you. Did any other Selma? Yes.
I know that the panel explained the poverty or lack of resources that we saw, and that there was a lot of work to be done. But you know what? When we walked in the church, what I saw firsthand was strength.
Yes.
It was, you know, I understand what you're saying, but it was strength. Like the fact that, of course, the message touched me. My father is a pastor. I give the word. I give that. You know, I give that. That was amazing. But what ministered, I want to say to me, was the music. I don't know if
Yes.
yeah, that's an important avenue. I don't know if you guys remember, it was two ladies. They sounded like a choir.
Yes. Yes.
Two ladies, and they were singing. My mind is made up.
Yes.
I'm on my way up.
Yes.
I'm going to hold my head up. You know, I understand what you're saying, but I think that these people have an enormous amount of
strength,
hope.
yes.
Still, in 2015, an enormous amount of strength, and
Absolutely.
they have a guide, and you can tell that a lot inside the church and even on the street. Some of the people we passed when we were trying to get fish when we were hungry. Some of the people that we've had, they're very Christian faith-based. A lot of them are. You know, even,
faith carries them.
A lot of them. Like, we've experienced this, you know, but we still believe, or we're going to put
Absolutely.
it in God's hands, or he's going to guide us. No offense to anyone. I'm just
Right.
saying what what their foundation is. And I personally believe, I think that's why they're still there. Mentally, physically, connect. I think that's why you're still there. Because they believe. I saw a lot of strength. Yes,
Yes.
it didn't work, but I saw a lot of strength. That song, like, I was sitting next to my chaperone, Teresa Curry, and I was like, my mind is made up.
We had church up in there at that point. It did not matter. I see you where people, you know, how people worship or what people's faith was, but we had church at that moment, at that time. And music, you make a very good point, unifies us. That is the collective, you know, response that folk have, and that level of empowerment is what you saw in that church. And they were all ethnic, racist. Everybody was up in there. Small, quite small, but we were there. We were present. You know, we were purposeful. We were listening. You know, it was really, I would have to say, one of the most powerful moments that I was able to take away was really hearing Reverend Dr. Barber, because he was authentic in what he had to say, and I think we all got something from what he said. Yes, ma'am.
Aside from the emotional unification and all that, you know, the spiritual thing that brought everyone together in the church, I wanted to know if there were any specific physical and economic ups about Selma itself. Did you see any positive? Did you see any good? Aside from just, you know, the bad and the ugly that they had to face and endure, did you see any ups?
Okay.
Yeah, upside I want to say is tourism, because Selma is not a big place. It's not. I want to say they don't really have any big festivals that get a lot of people to come in and spend their money. So for the 50th anniversary, they took advantage of the publicity that the event got, because there were people from all regions of the country that came there, and there were vendors there selling food. There were a lot of vendors there selling food, selling T-shirts, necklaces, bracelets, whatever they could make. You know, so. In that aspect, entrepreneurs had a chance to like make their money, so that was a upside economically.
Yeah, Doug brings a good point. He said that he mentioned the vendors and how one thing I wanted to mention about the vendors is that how recently there's this saying, support black businesses. So like they did take that opportunity. It was the 50th, and everyone that was there were black. They created their things, you know, they created t-shirts, they created necklaces, bracelets, whatever it was. It wasn't anything that they can just buy and resell. No, they made them themselves. They came out, they took their time, and you could tell that, you know, they were really passionate about what they were trying to sell, because it was more than just the money, you know. It was just, oh my God, it's a historical moment. I can make some money too, but how are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? Oh, this is cool, you know. And something about somebody mentioned like strength. The strength was there, and I feel like there's a lot of gray area in Selma, but the strength was there because of this forever going loop of, you know, that hope that still burns within the elderly. You know, it's still there and you can still see it. But the reason why that still burns is because the elderly see that the young people are so passionate. And the young people are so passionate because the elderly still, so you get where I'm going with this loop. So like there was this point in time where like a car pulled up in front of the church, and the driver was an elderly, the passenger was an elderly, and a random young person was on the phone, probably didn't even know the person, was just on the phone and was like, oh wait, hold up, I'm gonna call you back. Hung up, ran to the car, helped the elderly lady into the church, went back on his phone. You know, things like that. Like everybody looks out for each other in Selma. So that was pretty huge.
Thank you. I want to, I see you, but I do want to just, first of all, acknowledge, I saw Professor Dr. Gregory come past, and and Dr. Conrad. And the reason that I want to just mention that they're in the room is oftentimes when it comes to my student scholars who may be in their classrooms, and I ask them, can I borrow them for 5 minutes? Because we want to seize every opportunity that we can to let people hear about the experiences. And I appreciate your being so gracious and just, you know, allowing them to come, not only to share with your classes, but all of the different venues that we have. And believe me, we have a lot. So thank you. Mac Alexander, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I am. So I just, because I think we need to, and I keep going back to this, because had it not been for his, and again, we all took different, you know, photos, but amateur. But right, you know, but when you capture these moments, they're priceless, they're timeless. You're never going to even, you know, Dean Banray said, you know, City College, you know, students that were on the bus, like, had it not been for that photo, we will not have known that that narrative exists, right? So I just want to, again, say thank you, but then ask you a question. So what was it like for you in your role as photographer, capturing all of these historical moments?
It's like capturing this story all over again. It's just like, while I was there, I was on the bridge, it's like I have, how do you say that?
Goosebumps?
Goosebumps. But I listened to all those like full soldiers talking, and all those people that been there, and I had to go through a lot of things. And I remember Dick Van, is it?
Dick Gregory?
We didn't have to think about getting killed or getting beat up. Coming to Selma and thinking about like 50 years ago, some of the students, I think, oh my God, I might get killed or I might not come back home. And that was very, and I'm very fortunate.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm trying to put a little documentary, so when I went to Selma, I take a lot of little videos, and I'm trying to interview a couple of the students.
Yes.
But I have like a little demo. I don't know, probably at the end, if you guys have time,
Sure.
you can watch it.
Okay. How much time do you need?
About 6 minutes.
Okay. We can give him that. We can. So I want to take it back to the floor on this side, and then I'm going to come back over there. Other Selma scholars have any feedback? Oh, you had something, Dean? Go ahead.
In 1963, at the end of the Great March on Washington, folks came back with a charge.
Yes.
Voting rights and so on and so forth. In 1995, at the conclusion of the Million Man March, we came back with a charge to improve our communities. What was the number one charge that you brought back from this historic event?
Does anybody from the floor want to answer? Go ahead.
I just had a really humbling experience there. So my charge was to be just to give people this information, because the experience that I had, not everybody had that. It was only 26 of us. So if the rest of your college could know what it was like to be there, to see that, then I've done my job. Because there are other people in this room that weren't there, but they're here for a reason because they're interested. So if they can receive, it's about information, it's about sharing information. So if we share information so that these people, we can make them better, or that we don't end up statistics ourselves, then that's our charge.
Anybody else? Patricia, go ahead.
This is add to what he said about sharing information. That was like one of the big things, because me myself, I didn't like know a lot about Selma until I looked into it. One of my professors was talking about it, and I was just interested. Like, I think it just sparked something in me, because before I was really interested in like history and social work, and then after the whole experience, I just regained what I think I lost like some time ago, and it was just really interesting to have so much passion, and it was just a great experience, I would say, overall.
Thanks. Patricia? No? Yes.
I have a question. Are we answering his particular question, or are we just giving general feedback?
A bit of both. So basically what Dean Punter wanted to know is what was the charge coming back. So what I heard is passing along information. I'm going to come over here and see if you got something else, and then I'll tell you what I heard, and I'll open up to Dr. Hanson. Yes.
What I think a lot of us got back as well is not to take things for granted. Like I feel like a lot of young people, and actually just like middle-aged people, I think now like we kind of lost what our ancestors or our grandparents and our parents fought for 50 years ago, because we have everything accessible to us. Like, it's right in front of us. We get things for free now. Voting, I don't think a lot of people take that for granted until something directly happens. And until something directly impacts you, I feel like people don't really care. Like it's almost like it's pushed to the, yeah, okay, it's not gonna change, whatever. And I feel like it's just if you have it accessible and it's easy, and even though we're still struggling even here, I feel like people should, I try to like tell people, okay, you know what, you have to take that opportunity. So I just think it's more about taking opportunities and doing something positive with it.
Yes, ma'am.
My brother, or I should say Dean, what do you say charge? What do you say charge?
What happens next?
What happens next?
You had this great energy.
Well, when I bring back from Selma, importantly, is hope, faith, and encouragement for many communities I hold, especially the Black communities, because in our history we were taught to be divided, and that is something that I don't agree with totally. And I believe through unification, that's where you get the more power, humility, and authority to guide and direct something for the new generation. So what I do personally, I'm a songwriter and a poet. So online every week, I promote Black unification, unification of everybody, peace and humility on my Facebook, Instagram, but that's not the main point. The main point is, when we have our Black brethren or somebody on the street who's in help, stand up, help them. Don't sit down, don't hold back. If you want change, go for it. If you're gonna do A, B, and C, do A, B, and C. Don't do D, E, and F. That's what I have to say.
Right. Rosha?
I know everyone is seeing it on a community-based basis. I see it back to New York. It seems like, okay, you know what? I need to be more involved in New York. I need to make New York a better community. I need people to know about New York instead of, going out there. I could wait a while, but we need that unity in here first. We need the work to be done here first, and for others to just come here and know about it.
Great point.
I just want to piggyback off of what Rachel said. I'm a senior, and before I went on this trip, to be honest, I just went to class and then I just went home. Like that's all, you know what I mean? That's all that I did. And I think that this trip, I know that this trip changed my perspective in that regard, because Dr. Rogers, on the bus ride, we became family. I didn't know Alberto. Right. I didn't know how loving Ashley was, and so we were all in the bus, and we became a
family. And then that's how we grew from there. And then what I wanted to say was that when we were about to cross over the bridge, yes, we linked arm in arm. Alberta was giving us what to do like he was in charge. But he was giving us what to do. And I was linked on my left with Moody, and then on my right, I was linked with a Caucasian woman who didn't even know me. But she agreed to link arms with me. And I think that that was the beauty that I will never forget that. It was a lot of unity, a lot of love, a lot of strength, and a lot of hope. Well, I'm from your college. Oh, well, I live in Alabama. It's okay, I can link arms with you. And I think that was beautiful. That's what I took back most from it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ashley?
What you said, like, I completely agree, because I think now, and I'm including myself, I think now, like, we're all kind of, like, selfish. We were selfish, sort of, and, like, it's just like, okay, you know what, this is for me. That's it. Like, it's not for anyone else, you know? And I think that it was true, like, on the bus ride, I kind of felt like, okay, if we were walking, or if we were, like, 50 years ago, that's what they had to do. They had to learn to work together first. Because at first, I'll be honest, I was just like, oh no, I hate people, like, you know, like, and I was just like, I'll just bring it back to whoever, you know, I like. But then I realized, like, we have to work together to make something happen, you know, and I feel like we really did come together, and we really did learn, you know, if one person didn't see something, like, oh, did you see this? You know, like, and that's how we learn and grow. I think that's...
Rachel brings up a good point. She said that to think of it as what's going on here at the York community, everybody always says everything starts at home first. So we can't go out and preach unification and what we have to do if we ourselves aren't unified. So that was my charge. And with that being said, I've planned to become more involved, including with student government. I've been involved in recently. I plan on running, so Roberto.
I don't know if you guys heard about 50 years ago, Deacons for Defense. And what these people did 50 years ago was protect black people who were getting harmed by the police. And they just went out, risked their lives, I'm not saying get guns, had guns on their shoulders, and actually defended and sought inequality. So I want to take that back now, but not in a different way, reverse it. And I want to, when we see something and we know something is wrong and just bear, I can't even explain, wrong from justice, we should take in and step in and do something about it. And we should really not be bystanders, but be aware. That's it.
Yes.
Also to mention, they also had great chaperones, Dr. Hanson. We didn't even know he was a professor.
I'm gonna open it up. Thank you. Yeah, yes. So I also just wanted to go back to Dean Punter's question and give a response. One of the what I heard mostly from Reverend Dr. Barber was that everyone should go back to their own communities and their own states and organize, because you have people from all around the world. And so that was one of the main charges that I think, you know, yes, this is reality, and, you know, we're here to commemorate, you know, the 50th anniversary, but it's when you go home, what do you do at that point? So that's what I was able to take back. Dr. Daniels, did you want to add anything? Oh, okay, yeah, what you covered. So, Dr. Hanson. Your remarks?
This was an incredible experience for me, and I don't know if I can all be heard here, but it was I agree that when we went down on the bus, there was, actually for me, I was mostly trying to send off homework to my the students whose classes they were going to miss. But by the time I got there, and as we had to sort of manage all the challenges we had, it was such an intimate bonding experience. It was really kind of incredible. I feel like it did break down a lot of the barriers potentially between student and faculty, and everyone sort of like got to know each other as human beings and got to sort of see where everybody was coming from, and it was really exciting to be part of the dialogues and the things that emerged. Even though there was tension, there was difficulty, that was exciting. It felt like that was there was, you know, fun in a way to find ways and solutions and ways to connect and ways to learn from the whole situation. So I was really proud of the students. I was really proud of York. I was really proud of everything that was going on. It was a real honor to be part of it. I also kind of felt like it was a little bit magical, a little bit covered, you know, like protected. I feel like there were times when things could have gone really wrong, and they didn't go wrong. Like everything was okay afterwards. And I liked that. I felt, you know, that was it left a real, you know, lifelong impression.
I also want to acknowledge VP Thomas, who's not in the room, who was also quite instrumental in doing the work, and Baba, who is my mentor's mentor, who was actually at the same hotel as I was, and was doing a lot of the work in Selma while we were in Montgomery. So that network piece is really, really critical. So you just never know how people have to step up and be of support to you. And a lot of what we was able to navigate and negotiate was because of established relationships that, you know, had already existed. And even Dr. Daniels, although he was here in New York, he was calling and we was negotiating over the phone. And so that's how we were able to get a lot of the behind the scenes that it seemed seamless, but God knows it was not. But we did it, and we did it well because it was purposeful, and we understood that we had an obligation to answer the charge on a lot of different levels. So that being said, are there any more comments or questions from the floor? Because I want to do, yes, Patricia. Please.
I want to first take the opportunity to say thank you, because not only did we have a very vigorous application process, but we were selected to go. And I'm humbled that I was one of them. But I did want to comment on the communication. I feel very, very, very strongly that we were in an unknown territory, and our communication could have been 100% better between the chaperones and the students as well. Because there were instances where some students did get left behind in certain places, and that was upsetting because we all went as a unit and should have stayed as a unit. So
That's a good point. One of the questions that I did respond to, and I hear you on that, and so I think here's where the reality comes in. We can certainly do it better moving forward, but here's also the accountability piece. So when it was time to move, we have to move as a unit, and it really is the collective. So unfortunately, there were times where, you know, if we're waiting 15, 20 minutes, we have to go. And so certainly we can try to work in the future to improve those kinds of things, but there is an accountability for even the Selma scholars that went to understand the timeliness. So the intent is not to leave, but it's the larger group, the larger contingency. So I need to say that. Yeah, and certainly, and I think we can certainly improve that, but I think it's accountability across the board. And on that note, I just want to once again turn it back over to Dr. Daniels. And before I do that, to our esteemed leader, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Phelps for her role in the planning. I want to say thank you to Ben for his organizing of the video. I want to say thank you to Dean Banray and the Office of Student Development, and Vika and Ashley. My goodness, I don't know how much had to happen in the business office for us to be able to get there. We were... and I also wanted to acknowledge the other two chaperones who are not here, Ms. Curry and Ms. Bell, who are not in the room, and Professor Quash, who is also a chaperone. But to say that we were on the phone and it was a Saturday and a Sunday, I'm sorry, y'all, we need to get this bus because we had an alternative bus and we had to be in compliance with union rules. There was a lot that was going on that needed to happen behind the scenes that the chaperones did take care of in response to it being seamless for everyone else. But sleepless nights is what we had in order for it to come off the way in which it did. And so while we wanted to be probably more communicative, our response was for the larger picture at the time, but we will certainly take that into consideration. And again, to our phenomenal photographer who did such a fabulous, fabulous job. To our panel, Joshua, Fatima, Sheila, and Roberto, thank you. After Dr. Daniels speaks, then I'm going to have Mac Alexander show his video clip. And thank you again for your presence.
Big round of applause for our moderator. Let's go. Well, what I wanted to do in concluding was to have a few words about Beyond the Bridge. And I had some other remarks kind of prepared, but I sort of took notes and wanted to make a few remarks that may or may not be coherent because I sort of took certain snatches and pieces. First of all, let's everybody join in giving the pilgrimage group a big round of applause. Give yourselves a big round of applause. First and foremost, I wanted to be clear about who the foot soldiers are. They kept being referred to. I think you kind of got who they were, but I want to be sure you understood that the foot soldiers were those persons who were actually on the bridge 50 years ago. And many of them are still alive. But they are, you know, they're out there. And among them, of course, some of you saw the pictures in the New York Times and others, is Amelia Boynton. Those of you who saw the film Selma, I think she's 103 or so years old now. And so she was there. In previous years, we were able to get actually to have an opportunity to get a photo with her. One of the disappointments for me was, I mean, it was so many people. On the day of President Obama, they said maybe 40,000. On the day of the march, anywhere from 70,000 upwards in a town that is only 30,000 people. That gives you a sense of the challenges that were there. Now, let me just say this. There are a lot of different things that we can say. For example, we could, in fact, bring a foot soldier or 2 foot soldiers to York, right? I mean, why not? I mean, we could bring, and maybe the SNCC Freedom Singers, the singers who were there. You saw them. They're still around. They're still, you know, banging out those tunes, those freedom songs. That's a project. You know, we could bring them here. We don't, I mean, everybody can't go to Selma. We can bring Selma to York, right? And since some of you met them and you know them, that would be a nice little kind of reunion if we were able to have that done. The other thing I wanted to say was, and many of you touched on it, is the issue of beyond celebration and commemoration, which is a big deal because we know we do Martin Luther King Day every year, and you know, it's like there's a lot of commemoration and whatever, but what you saw was the contradiction. Because one of the things that happens in Selma every year that some of us complain about, and in my remarks at the Unity Breakfast, which many of you didn't get a chance to hear because you had to rush off to another thing, which was good, is I spoke to that. Reverend Jackson spoke to that. That we come every year and we do this commemoration, and as the foot soldiers raise the question, the politicians come and they make it an occasion where they can be, you know, whatever. And it's not that they're bad. Some of them do good work. But in the process, that ceremony takes precedent over substance. The fact of the matter is, 50 years after Selma, Selma is an incredibly underdeveloped community. In fact, in that very community, they now have, and this happened with the complicity of some of the black council members, they have a statue on, they voted to have a statue on public ground of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Now, Nathan Bedford Forrest is one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan and is widely believed to have been involved in a massacre of black troops. That's happening in Selma. So you have still these contradictions and tensions that are going on. But the incredible economic development, underdevelopment, and as Professor Rogers pointed out, if you were to go to the Mississippi Delta, we've had people, one of the young people, one of the ladies I met there, her name is Antoinette Harrell. She took one of our dear friends, Dr. Ron Walters, now deceased, throughout the Delta, where you have people still literally living as if they're in slavery in the South today. So there's the contradiction of the celebration and the commemoration. And yes, people who come and who are there as if, who would not have dared been in Selma 50 years ago. But today, politically, it's expedient to come and be photographed and be seen. So, you know, you all saw through that, and you should see through that. Now, to me, one of the great challenges is, you know, as I left Selma and I didn't get a chance to write this article that I wanted to work on because I'm working on this other project right now, my brain is about fried, was the whole question of economic development. And that is to say, there is no reason why we cannot begin to challenge, you know, some of our, you know, hip-hop moguls and some of our celebrities and artists and entertainers to make Selma a model city. I mean, why should Selma be there? Why should we go back there every year and then we come back and then we leave the people in that kind of condition? The organizers there struggle very hard. You didn't get a chance to see all of this because, you know, when you arrived, you were exhausted. The tour we were supposed to take didn't happen, so you didn't really maybe get a chance to see the Voting Rights Museum, some of those things that they have worked and struggled to build. We have people right here in New York, Dr. Adelaide Sanford, former regent of the New York Board of Regents, a group of elders who have put their money together to create something called Elders House. They did that out of their own resources. So we could, in fact, find ways in which to reinvest back into Selma. And one of the things I want to talk about, some of my friends across the country is convening an economic summit in Selma to talk about how do we, in fact, build, you know, Selma. You know, age of social media, a lot of things can happen. Oprah came. Oprah's a good person. You know, Oprah does some really good work. She really does. And so a lot of times, she didn't come and do this and so, but look, we can challenge Oprah too in a nice way. I mean, she built a school in South Africa or somewhere in Africa for a whole. So Oprah does some really good things. Social media campaign, y'all could do a social media campaign and say, hey, Oprah, what about reinvesting in Selma? You came, what about after the bridge? Would you be willing, or, you know, creatively figure out, I don't know how to handle the tweeting and all that, but y'all know how to do that, right? And maybe it gets through to Oprah, and maybe she goes back, and maybe she decides to invest $500,000, $1 million, or $2 million to do some economic development. Who knows what's possible? That could potentially happen. So the economic piece is very important, but it mirrors what is happening in this nation in general. I mean, Occupy Wall Street was not sort of an idle exercise. It talked about the 1% and the tremendous contradictions of inequality in this country, which are exacerbated and perhaps even sharper in the South, but there's poverty everywhere. And as you referred to it, the whole in my organizing class, we're reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow to get people to understand how this whole question of the war on drugs has created a whole new caste of people in this country, mostly black and brown, who cannot escape. It is horrific, even though we have a black president in these United States of America. So these are things that we can also look at. Reverend William Barber, we can invite him here, we know him. He's the president of the North Carolina branch of the NAACP. Why not bring Reverend Barber here? You know what I mean? We could find, and we could get him to come and talk about it, because he is, in my opinion, and I know most of the leaders, all these, I know them all. He is, to me, the most authentic. He's not seeking the camera. He's not out here trying to promote himself. He's saying, go build your own movement. But he is, you can sense it. He is authentic, strong, and he's brilliant. But he combines that inspirational quality that has you want to believe and gives you hope. So Reverend William, watch for him, because he is going to emerge as one of the key leaders beyond, sort of the issues that we're with some of the superficial stuff that we're dealing with now. Now, the other thing I want to say is this. Yes, we can start right here in York. I have an organizing class. One of their assignments was to study York student government. They came back yesterday with the report. None of them in the class knew that the fees were taken out of their tuition in order to, in my class, you may know, I'm saying in my class, right? None of them knew that. None of them had really a sense of how the student government was organized, right? Now, we could talk about voting rights, the Voting Rights Act, which is under danger. What about Voting Rights Act right here on this campus? Why do we have such low voter participation right here on this campus? And we went through, and they went through this, in report in my class yesterday, talked about how you went to Selma because the student government did what? Voted. That's a political entity. You can get your political training right here on this campus, dealing with the issues on this campus. Student government involved in curricular questions, involved in issues of safety. All these issues, student senate. You have a voice. And so, yeah, we can go out and organize the whole world and the whole community, but why not organize right here on this campus to increase the voter participation? You're running for office, great, whole bunch of people. Let's get it going, because that's another exercise. It was inexcusable, but just like you say, people come and they go and back. But see, that's what happens in the community. That's what was happening in Ferguson. Ferguson had a majority black population. People were so busy just going back and forth and trying to survive that under their very nose, you had a situation where the police department only had 3 black officers on it out of 57, majority council, so forth. You can take, so these are exercises that we can begin right here. Finally, 2 points. I just want to bring your attention to a project that I'm working on now, because there's always the next project. Some of you may want to get involved in this. This is some reparations was mentioned by, I think, you, right? So we're getting ready to have a major national, international reparations summit right here in the city of New York with people coming from 22 nations. Now, what's not on this schedule is that, because it's not public, is that 2 days of that will be, the business sessions will be right here at York campus on April the 10th and 11th. And so I want to find a way where people who would like to observe and whatever can register. I don't know quite know how to figure it out, but we don't want to not have, it's on break, but it's okay. If we can find a way for people to say they want to come, we'll put your name on the list so you can come and see some of these incredible people from all over the world who are going to be here, including, for those of you who've studied some of the anti-colonial struggles, France Fanon is one of the leading anti-colonial theoreticians and practitioners. His daughter, that's her picture here, Muriel Fanon, and she's not just, that's not just his daughter, she is herself an activist. And last but not least, some of you may be aware that I try to do a little radio stuff every now and then. I'm a radio talk show host, among other things, and I haven't done it in a while. But starting this coming Monday, in conjunction with York YC Radio and WBAI, from 10 o'clock in the morning every Monday to 12 o'clock, there will be Vantage Point with Professor Ron Daniels, right? So you'll be able to tune in by internet, and we're going to try to get some students involved in the broadcast too, because we're doing it as a collaboration between WBAI and York College Radio every Monday from 10 o'clock to 12 a.m. will be Vantage Point. So we hope you'll all tune in and get involved in that as well. So I just conclude by, again, thanking everybody for your participation, your engagement, and there is much work to be done. I took your suggestion. Now we'll see how we can work these things through, because that energy does need to be translated. But my final challenge is Project 1. Let's get involved in the activities, all the student clubs, all the student organizations, and student government right here on this campus. That's the laboratory. That's how you can, in fact, begin to make a difference. And then we can begin to look at other projects. And let me say this. You know, I was saying, well, we only did this summer thing. I was kind of thinking, I don't know if we, but I do see that, you know, maybe we should, you know, continue to think about how we can plan to do it, because it is a great experience. I go every year because I have the same, it never gets old for me. When I go across that bridge, I do these things precisely because I sense, I feel the spirit, I feel the ancestors, I feel the work that was done. That's what fuels me, that's what keeps me going, is knowing that people suffered, bled, and died, and that my education, that which has been bequeathed to me, does not belong to me. It belongs to all of us. It belongs to every one of us. It is the challenge to help improve my people. But at the end of the day, if we are righteous, if we stand firm, we not only liberate ourselves, we liberate all of humankind. Thank you very kindly.
I never want to speak after Dr. Daniels. At this point, we're going to show Mick Alexander's video.
Yes. The video is not, I'm thinking about doing a short documentary, and I would like to interview some of the scholars that went to Selma, so I just have to add some of this thing to it. So it's not completely done. It's just like a little preview for the thing.
I'm speechless. Mac Alexander, did you want to add anything else to your video?
As I say, I just want to interview a couple of the students that went and just have them give a little feedback. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So that was just a quick preview. Great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Can't wait for the finish.
Thank you.
Thank you all again for coming. Have a fabulous remainder of your day.